Classrooms in chaos and a district under scrutiny for how it's handling severe discipline issues.
Tucson Unified's Superintendent H.T. Sanchez has been working to finalize a new code of conduct to reduce suspensions and expulsions. But this school year, current staff have come forward to report the new practices already in place district-wide are too lenient, resulting in further bullying, more assaults with watered-down punishment for the offenders, and worsening morale issues with many staff and teachers on the front lines. Now, I sat down with a man under fire, Superintendent H.T. Sanchez, in part to walk through the process and explain the reasons why he felt the discipline policy needed to be changed.
It all started in H.T. Sanchez's first year, he says, pressured under the decades-old desegregation court order, the Unitary Status Plan, to fix discipline disparities between minority and white students. Sanchez says he began looking at national data.
You tend to find that you'll have minority students who will break the same rule that majority students break, and the minority student gets a harsher penalty. And in most cases, they're removed for a longer period of time from instruction than a majority student. And that's national research, that's not H.T. Sanchez. So you have the Unitary Status Plan that says you need to look at that data because the court's going to look at that data and the plaintiffs are going to look at that data.
He says the district looked at the data, and in most schools, TUSD's discipline disparities mirrored those trends found in urban cities like Houston and Chicago.
We began breaking down the data, taking a look at all the information, and we began evaluating our practices. We began evaluating the consistency. We began looking at the data on a regular basis.
And having conversations with principals. He says in the end, he found the district needed to change the code of conduct, which guides discipline practices. After Sanchez's first year, the work, he says, was nearly completed.
This is going back to 2013. It was about 90% done. And so we took it to the board voted on it, and then we sent it back to the plaintiffs and special master. They made commentary, and there were certain things that they felt were too harsh. They said, you know, this penalty is very harsh for this rule violation. So we began talking to them about what needed to change. And we got to a point to where we said, all right, we'll work through this. We'll make these adjustments.
The district deployed those adjustments the next school year, and Sanchez says he explained the philosophy, the restorative practices, to the principals.
Our choice is to send a child into an unsupervised environment or a child into an environment where they witness abuse and violence, or into a neighborhood where they're seeing things that most families don't witness on a daily basis. We can do that, or we can find a way to work with them and help them here. When I was sitting with the attorney from the Department of Justice and we were reviewing the code of conduct at the beginning of last year, there was a conversation that we had. And the conversation we had was, this is going to be difficult. This is going to be a challenge. This isn't going to be easy. But as we discussed it, just because something's difficult, just because something's going to be hard to do you shy away from it and say, no, we're just going to continue to send children out?
One of the biggest adjustments this school year, Sanchez says, pertains to principals. They can no longer decide whether to suspend a student. Instead, they are required to make a phone call to a district administrator.
There is a conversation that has to be held about, all right, so what was the situation? What have we done on the front end? And if we're asked, all right, did we provide the level of support for the student before we deny them an education and send them out of the educational setting? Did we do the things we needed to? And if the answer is yes, and this is an ongoing and escalating issue, then the suspension occurs.
He says the vast majority of the administrators in TUSD's 89 schools picked up the philosophy, but some principals and staff who have come forward tell us there are major discipline problems district-wide because those on the front lines, teachers especially, did not receive enough training in how to handle the changes.
And Sanchez tells me that he plans to get the finalized code of conduct to the governing board sometime in the middle of August. And of course, we will cover all the developments.
We know you'll definitely